I hadn't even set the tart down yet when my dad accused me of stealing. There I was, standing in the doorway of our family's cabin in upstate New York, still in my boots, holding Grandma's apple tart, her recipe, her spices, her crust folded by hand just like she showed me when I was 7. I hadn't made it in years, but this was the harvest reunion. Her reunion. And I thought bringing it would mean something. Guess I was wrong. "Vanessa," my father said, not even bothering with hello. "We need to talk about the missing funds." I blinked. "Hi to you, too." He stepped toward me, his hand gesturing toward the table, the one already dressed with faded plaid cloth and mismatched plates we've been using for decades. "Don't play dumb. $60,000. Gone from your grandmother's care account. You were managing it. Where is it?" I stared at him. "What are you talking about?" "You know exactly what I'm talking about." The tart was getting heavy in my arms. I glanced toward my brother, Nathan. He was sitting at the far end of the table, flipping a coaster in his hands like he hadn't heard anything. Julia, his wife, sipped from a mug without looking up. My mother adjusted the curtains behind the table like they suddenly needed fixing. No one met my eyes. "Are you all serious?" I said, louder now. No response. The silence hit harder than the words. "You think I stole from Grandma?" I asked, voice cracking. "You think I took 60 grand from her care fund?" Dad's eyes narrowed. "You're the only one who had digital access. The only one who set up her online accounts." "Because she asked me to," I snapped. "Because none of you even knew how to open a damn browser tab." "Language," Mom mumbled, still not turning around. "Unbelievable," I said under my breath, shifting the pie in my arms. "So I drove 4 hours, took 2 vacation days, brought her freaking tart, and you, what, ambush me like I'm some con artist?" Julia finally looked up. "We just need answers, Vanessa." I turned to Nathan. "Are you really going along with this?" He looked down, started flipping the coaster again. I felt like I was underwater, like someone had punched all the air out of my chest. These people, my family, were staring at me like a stranger. Worse, like a threat. "I didn't take anything," I said, quieter now. "Not a damn cent." No one spoke, not even my mom, who used to call me her rock. Not my brother, who I once loaned $10,000 to finish his HVAC certification. Not Julia, who asked me to review her resume last spring. "You really think I'm capable of that?" I whispered, almost to myself. No answer. And that was it. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't part of the family anymore. I was the outsider holding a tart no one was going to eat. I set it down on the sideboard, untouched, and I walked out. I didn't slam the door when I left. I didn't cry. I just walked out into the cold October air, got in my car, and drove. The back roads were damp with mist. The kind that clung to your windshield no matter how fast the wipers worked. The kind Grandma used to say was good for apples. I should have gone back to the city, but I wasn't ready to be around anyone, not yet. So I drove east until I saw a sagging wooden sign I'd passed a dozen times over the years, but never once noticed. Pine Hollow Lodge, vacancy. The office was a tiny cabin with yellow siding and a flickering porch light. I handed over my card to a guy in flannel who didn't ask questions. He gave me a key and a paper map to my room, like it was still 1992. Room 7 smelled faintly like mildew and pine sol. The mattress was lumpy, and the Wi-Fi didn't work. It was perfect. I kicked off my boots and sat on the edge of the bed for a while, just listening to the silence. No traffic, no voices, no, "Vanessa, you have to understand." Just silence. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I almost didn't check it. "Julia, you made it hard to believe in you." That was it. No apology, no questions. Just judgment wrapped in faux concern. I stared at the screen until it went dark. I lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling fan as it spun, slowly and off-kilter. That's how it always was with them, wasn't it? Off-kilter. Growing up, I was the one who fixed things, the one who filled out Mom's insurance forms, who typed Nathan's essays, who took Dad's car to get serviced. But when I got promoted to lead systems engineer last year, nobody said congratulations. Just jokes. "Must be nice to sit in front of a computer all day," Nathan once said. "Hope it's not one of those jobs that turns you into a robot," Julia added. Even my mother said it with a smile. "Don't get too full of yourself, honey. You know tech people always end up unemployed when the market shifts." Every milestone I reached, they met with suspicion, or worse, dismissal. I was always too something for them, too proud, too distant, too different. And now I was a thief, apparently. I sat up, grabbed the remote, and turned on the TV just to drown it all out. But I couldn't focus. That message kept circling my brain like a mosquito. You made it hard to believe in you. I hadn't made it hard. They'd made it easy for themselves. Easy to believe I was arrogant. Easy to believe I was selfish. Easy to believe I'd betray the person I loved most in this world. They'd been waiting for this, for a reason to shut me out. And now they had one. Whether it was true or not didn't matter. I turned off the TV and lay back down, the tart still in my mind, untouched on the cabin table, while the people I once called family sat inside pretending they'd just done the right thing. Let them pretend. The next morning, I woke up to the pale light slipping through crooked blinds and the sound of a faucet dripping somewhere behind the wall. I hadn't slept well. My neck ached. My head throbbed. But beneath the exhaustion, something sharper was starting to take shape. Something more useful than grief. Anger. No focus. I wrapped myself in the old wool sweater I kept in the trunk of my car, made bad coffee with powdered creamer, and sat at the room's tiny table with my laptop. I didn't even know what I was looking for at first. Just something. The accusation still rang in my ears. $60,000, as if I would ever touch Grandma's care fund. I'd been the one who helped her set it up, for God's sake. I'd driven upstate 3 weekends in a row to help her file insurance claims and dig through confusing health plan paperwork. I was the only one who cared enough to make sure her prescriptions were covered and her Medicare Advantage account was secure. That day came back to me with sudden clarity. We sat at her kitchen table while she handed me an old manila folder full of receipts, login printouts, and scraps of notes, written in her loopy cursive. She watched while I set up secure online access to her credit union, added 2-factor authentication, and created a new PIN. I labeled everything clearly and stored it in the drawer next to her stove, the one that everyone in the family knew about. I even told Nathan and Julia where to find it just in case. Just in case. A slow chill crept through me. That drawer wasn't locked. It never had been. Anyone who visited the house could have accessed everything. That included Nathan, who had stayed with Grandma for a week when he was between jobs. That included Julia, who used to stop by on weekends to check in, though Grandma once admitted she mostly just napped on the couch. What if it wasn't me? What if I was being set up? That thought landed hard. Not a suspicion, an instinct. The kind I'd learned to trust after 10 years in systems security and digital forensics. Last month, one of my colleagues had uncovered a case involving elder fraud. Someone had impersonated a senior to drain their health savings account, using just enough stolen information to make it look like a glitch. The thief was a family member. The pattern sounded too familiar now. I opened a fresh doc and started typing out what I could remember. Dates I helped Grandma with her account, which email address we used, what browser we logged in from. I didn't know what I was building yet, but it felt like a beginning. If they wanted to frame me, they should have picked someone else, because I was going to find the truth. I wasn't technically supposed to access the firm's internal tools for personal use, but I didn't care, not anymore. By noon, I was sitting in the back corner of a coffee shop off Route 9, earbuds in, hoodie up, and laptop glowing with admin-level access to a forensic toolkit most hackers would kill for. The login to Grandma's credit union account had been set up under her name, but I remembered the username. We chose it together. I knew the account number. I knew the interface. Most importantly, I knew how to dig. First stop, the transaction logs. According to the account dashboard, 3 large withdrawals had been made over the past 2 months, each about $20,000, each marked as in-branch, not online, not wire transfers, not even ATM pulls. In-branch. My father claimed I stole the money through digital access, but there were no outbound transfers to my account. No fingerprint, because I hadn't done it, but someone had. I scribbled down the transaction IDs and called the branch, just a polite inquiry, I said, to see if Grandma had gone in recently. No, she hasn't been in since the spring, the manager told me. But we have protocols. Anyone withdrawing from an elderly account must provide valid ID and matching paperwork. Would there be security footage for those visits? Sure, she said. We keep camera logs for 90 days. She paused. Are you family? I hesitated. Yes, I'm her granddaughter. There's been a dispute. There was more silence than I liked, but eventually she agreed to review the footage, privately with me present, if I could make it to the branch by the end of the day. I was already out the door. The footage wasn't crystal clear, but it didn't need to be. The first clip showed Julia, hair pulled into a tight bun, oversized sunglasses, scarf around her neck like she was playing dress-up in someone else's life. She slid a folder to the teller. Inside it, I saw the corner of a document I recognized. Grandma's insurance ID. My gut clenched. 2 weeks later, another visit. This time, it was Nathan. No disguise. Just cool as ever, leaning on the counter like he belonged there. I watched him sign something. The zoomed-in still showed the signature clearly. Grandma's name, in Nathan's handwriting. I leaned closer to the monitor. Do you have copies of the documents they submitted? I asked. The manager nodded, pulling up a scan. Insurance card, power of attorney letter, and a printed note claiming I was no longer managing finances due to relocation. All forged. All submitted by Julia. I took photos of everything. Back in my car, I sat gripping the steering wheel, heart racing. They hadn't just stolen from Grandma, they'd built a story around it. And every detail pointed to me. Because I'd set up the account, because I worked in tech, because I was convenient. But now I had what they didn't count on. Evidence. And I wasn't done yet. I didn't go back to the motel that night. I drove to the city instead, back to my apartment, back to my space, where I could think without the scent of pine-scented mold crawling up my nose. At 1:27 a.m., I was still awake, hair pulled into a messy bun, laptop propped on a stack of old tech manuals, and Grandma's account history open in one tab, Julia's freelance gig listings in another. What they'd done wasn't just criminal, it was coordinated. I opened the security logs from the health insurance portal Grandma used, the same one I'd helped her register for last spring. I still had access. I'd used my email when I created her account, then changed it back to hers once it was verified. But buried in the account preferences, I spotted something that stopped me cold. The recovery email address? It wasn't hers anymore. It was now linked to a Gmail account I didn't recognize. But I knew the area code and the recovery phone number. 845. Same as Julia and Nathan's. I pulled up Julia's freelance profile on a popular gig platform. One of her listings, need help managing multiple client inboxes, I can handle that, had a contact email. Same Gmail username, different domain, sloppy, but it was enough. From there, I checked the login metadata, IP addresses, access points, browser versions. On 3 separate occasions, the account had been accessed from a residential IP in Dutchess County, the same one listed on Julia and Nathan's home internet plan. I ran a ping trace just to be sure. The network host matched a router model from their exact service provider. Then came the nail in the coffin. 5 days before the first in-branch withdrawal, there was a forgot PIN request on the health portal. Julia had triggered a reset. She'd entered Grandma's name, date of birth, and policy number. The system had sent a recovery link to the updated email, Julia's fake one. From there, she set a new access, PIN. And the timing matched perfectly. 2 days later, she walked into the credit union with Grandma's insurance ID and claimed she had new authorization. They'd used me. They'd used the fact that I set everything up, that I worked in cybersecurity, that no one else in the family knew how any of this worked. It was the perfect cover. Blame the digital daughter who lived far away, who always knew the passwords, who was just too good with computers. I started compiling everything. Timestamps, screenshots, IP logs, scanned bank footage, transaction IDs, even metadata from the forged documents. I built a binder. Not just a digital folder, but a real printed binder with labeled tabs and a sticky note on the front that read in red Sharpie, Truth. They had planned this down to the detail, but they made one mistake. They underestimated me. And they forgot. I don't just build secure systems for a living. I know exactly how to tear them down. I pulled into the gravel drive just past 6:30 Monday evening. The sun was dropping behind the pine trees, casting long shadows across the cabin porch where we used to sip cider and play cards. From the outside, it looked the same, familiar, comfortable, but now I knew better. I cut the engine and sat for a moment. the binder resting on the passenger seat like a loaded weapon. My hands were steady. My heart wasn't racing. There was no drama in this. No storm. Just the truth, finally in my hands. Inside, they were all there. Julia curled on the couch with a mug of tea like she hadn't spent the last month impersonating a dying woman. Nathan leaned against the kitchen counter, scrolling on his phone. My mom stood at the sink, drying a plate in slow, quiet motions. It looked like a postcard. Peaceful, harmless. I stepped through the door without knocking. Nobody said anything, not at first. Just eyes darting up, then quickly away. "Evening," I said, setting the binder on the dining table. Dad emerged from the hallway. "Vanessa," he said, tone guarded. I'm not here to talk," I cut in. "I'm here to show you something." I flipped the binder open and turned the table lamp so the light hit just right. "This," I said, sliding out the first plastic sleeve, "is a transaction summary from Grandma's credit union. 3 withdrawals totaling $60,000, all made in person." I flipped to the next tab. "Here's the surveillance footage from those visits. Julia on October 2nd, Nathan on the 16th. I didn't rush. I let each photo, each timestamp, each page breathe in the room. I pointed to Julia's signature on a forged affidavit, to Nathan's scrawl pretending to be Grandma's, to the recovery email, juliashelpdesk84@gmail.com, attached to Grandma's health portal. I traced the IP logs to your house, I said, nodding at Julia. Same browser, same router, same time zone. You triggered a PIN reset days before the first withdrawal. The metadata doesn't lie. Julia's mug hit the table with a dull thud. "Vanessa," Mom said softly, like I was the one who'd just shattered something. I didn't look at her. I built Grandma's account because no one else wanted to bother. I kept it organized, safe, accessible, because I thought we were all on the same team. I turned the next page. This is the original care plan, handwritten in Grandma's notes. She made it clear I was to manage her medical fund. No one else. Silence pressed down like a weight. Julia looked like she might speak, but nothing came out. Nathan's thumbs were frozen above his phone. I turned to Dad. "You accused me. In front of everyone. You believed I'd steal from the woman who taught me to peel apples without wasting the skin." His face was pale. He didn't say a word. I tapped the binder once, flat-palmed. "This isn't a request. I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm showing you." Then I closed it gently. "For the record," I said, my voice even, "I'm not filing anything yet. But this copy goes to the family lawyer tomorrow. I suggest you all read it tonight." No one moved. No one said my name. I stood there for one more breath. Then I walked out. The door closed behind me with a quiet click. This time, I didn't look back. I didn't expect any of them to call, and they didn't. But 2 days later, I got a text from my dad. "Come by the cabin. We need to talk." I stared at it for a minute before I even moved. There was no apology. No hint of remorse, just control. Still, I went. Not for them, for myself, for closure. When I stepped inside this time, they didn't pretend to be relaxed. They were waiting, like kids called into the principal's office. Julia was the first to speak, though her voice barely rose above a whisper. "You always had everything handed to you, Vanessa. Even Grandma liked you best." I blinked at her. "What?" "She called you smart," she muttered. "She never said that about me." "That's your reason?" I asked. "That's your justification for stealing from her?" "Because I got compliments." Julia's face flushed. "You had the job, the salary, the life. We were drowning. Nathan's HVAC business tanked after COVID, and you were out here designing whatever, circuits or space shuttles or—" She waved a hand like I lived in some fantasy dimension. "I write firmware for medical devices," I said coldly. "Things that keep people alive." Nathan stepped forward, rubbing his hands together like he was about to give a speech. "Look, Vanessa, I'm not saying it was right, but come on. You live in a high-rise in the city. You don't even need the money. It wasn't theft. It was redistribution." I stared at him, stunned. "You sound like you're explaining a Kickstarter scam," he shrugged. "We thought maybe you'd never even notice. Until Dad gave you the perfect excuse," I said. My eyes flicked to our father, still silent in the corner. "The second that money was missing, you all pointed at me, because it fit the narrative. I was the one with access, the one who didn't visit enough, the one you never really trusted." My mother looked up. Her voice shook. I didn't want to believe it, but I did. Too fast, too easily. I nodded. That's the part that hurt. Julia folded her arms. You think you're so much better than us. With your job, your apartment, your perfect tart recipe. It was Grandma's recipe, I snapped. And I brought it for all of you. Silence filled the room again. Heavier now, denser. Then I took a slow breath. I'm not pressing charges, I said. Yet. But everything's already with the family lawyer. If I ever see another withdrawal, I will take it straight to the state attorney. Nathan opened his mouth. I'm not finished, I said. From here on out, Grandma's care fund gets placed under third-party monitoring. The lawyer's already arranging it. My mother's eyes welled with tears. Vanessa. I'm not doing this for you, I said sharply. I'm doing it for her. Because she trusted me. And because I still remember the sound of her humming while she made tea. I don't need you to like me. I don't even need you to forgive me. I need you to know I'm done. I looked at each of them, one by one. I'm not asking to be believed anymore. I'm telling you the truth. Then I turned around and walked out. This time, no one followed me. Back in the city, everything looked the same, but I didn't feel the same anymore. I returned to work the next morning like nothing had happened. My manager greeted me with a nod. My team gave updates on firmware builds. I slid back into my role like a glove I'd worn for years. But underneath, something had shifted. I was quieter, more guarded. At lunch, I kept my earbuds in even when they weren't playing anything. I ignored the family group text thread when it lit up with photos of some niece's Halloween costume. I let the notifications pile up until the thread buried itself in silence again. When Christmas invites rolled around in late November, I didn't answer. No explanation, no argument. Just absence. Julia texted once, near New Year's. I know we screwed up, but ignoring us forever isn't fair either. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I swiped left and deleted it. I wasn't interested in fair. I was interested in peace. Instead of family functions, I poured myself into something new. A small weekend initiative through my company's outreach program. Free digital workshops for seniors on fraud protection. Just a side project, I told myself. Nothing big. A few flyers posted around community centers. Some one-on-one sessions with folks who still called phones the landline. But word spread. People showed up. Some came with grocery lists and email printouts. Others just with fear in their eyes. One woman clutched a crumpled check she'd almost mailed to a fake sweepstakes. Another said her son kept asking for her login info just in case. I showed them how to protect themselves. How to recognize lies, how to say no. It wasn't charity. It was control. And for once, I was giving it to people who needed it. One afternoon, near the end of a session, an older woman lingered behind while the others left. Her coat was too big, her hands shaky as she packed up her notepad. I wish I had a daughter like you, she said suddenly, her voice soft. I blinked. That's kind of you, I said. She smiled, adjusting the scarf around her neck. One who fights for the truth, even when it's ugly. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Then I just nodded and walked her to the door. Back in the empty room, I sat at the folding table for a long time, watching the sun dip behind the buildings. I didn't cry. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt quiet, like something had ended and something else had begun. It arrived in a plain white envelope. No return address, no markings, just my name, written in uneven handwriting that didn't look familiar. I almost tossed it in the trash, thinking it was junk. But something about the weight of it made me pause. It wasn't a letter. It felt thicker, softer. I peeled it open on the kitchen counter, expecting a flyer or maybe a thank you card from one of the workshop attendees. Instead, it was a photo. Me, Nathan, and Julia, probably 9, 10 years old, sitting in a backyard tent, arms draped over each other's shoulders, grinning like idiots. I remembered that day. We'd built the tent out of Grandma's old bedsheets and stayed out there until dark, telling ghost stories and fighting over gummy worms. On the back of the photo, in black ink, a short note was scrawled. We didn't know how much we'd miss you until you were gone. That was it. No signature, no date, no apology, just nostalgia, weaponized. I stared at the photo for a long time. My thumb traced the image of my younger self, knees dirty, face freckled, eyes full of trust. That girl had no idea what would happen 2 decades later. No idea that family could turn on you so neatly, so quietly. No idea that love could rot into resentment, then into betrayal. They hadn't sent this to make peace. They'd sent it to reopen the door, or at least knock on it from the other side. But I wasn't opening it. I didn't call. I didn't text. I didn't acknowledge it at all. Instead, I walked into my bedroom, opened the bottom drawer of my filing cabinet, and placed the photo face down on top of the binder. The same binder I'd brought to the cabin. The one with dates and signatures and silent truths that still made my stomach turn. Then I slid the drawer shut. I didn't burn it. I didn't throw it away. I filed it. Because I wasn't forgetting what happened. I was just done carrying it. I poured myself a glass of water, stood at the kitchen sink, and looked out at the window across the courtyard. A kid was riding a scooter in circles, laughing at something no one else could see. I smiled faintly, not because I felt warm or healed or vindicated, but because I had stopped waiting for them to understand. That photo was a memory, not a message. And the past, it was staying exactly where it belonged, filed, untouched, but never again ignored.